Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. I'm James Currie with the Communication Department. I'm talking to my friend Stephen Schottgen again. He is a behavioral health provider here at MCHD and Family Health. Stephen, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Never better, my friend, never better. Um, this is a pretty heavy subject here that we're talking about, and it's something that I had no idea about until I heard about it and I did a little research, and apparently it's a real thing that the suicide rate is higher in the springtime than it is in the winter. Um, can you explain that?
Well, we've been trying to figure that out since probably around the 1800s. There have been a lot of studies that have been done. Some are linked with the increased anxiety due to forced socialization, at least in the past, because when we were more agrarian, this was the time to go out and uh, get the products you need to start planting the fields, start harvesting some crops and selling them, taking them to market. So, with increased socialization becomes increased anxiety for a lot of people.
Mm.
That's
Yeah,
one thought.
you know, yeah, and it's just the opposite of what you would think. I mean, you would think that people get the winter blues, from being cooped up, and I mean, we don't get snow here hardly ever, but I mean, in other parts of the country, winter blues, that's a real thing. People get depressed, but actually suicide rates are lower in the winter than they are in the spring.
Yeah, and there's some thoughts that our bodies instinctively go into sort of a hibernation, and some of the serotonin, the chemicals in the brain,
Mhm.
are adjusted for that colder weather.
Yeah, this is just a such an odd phenomenon. You would think that springtime is a rebirth, a renewal. I see all six hostas that I planted last year coming back up. I thought they were dead during the winter snap, but you see stuff like that, and it gives you a little revitalization about spring. But um, I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. Help me understand it.
Well, it's also a lot, at least what I'm thinking is it's a lot like the holidays. We're able to spend time with family and friends, but it also creates a lot of stress because there's a lot more activity, a lot more planning that needs to go into it, and a lot of times a lot more money and effort. So
Excuse me.
that can bring
Yeah.
increased stress. And if we're isolated, that can also be an ongoing reminder of, how isolated we are, um, how there's a lack of connectivity with our fellow human beings.
So we were built to cope for the winter in isolation and cooped up and storms, but our bodies can't handle springtime.
And that's pretty much, from what I've read, that seems to be the our best guess, our most educated guess.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to make light of the situation. By no means. I mean, this is a very real thing. I know that, you have spoken to people, they have issues that just reoccur in certain times of the year. You know, in therapy and counseling and stuff, what do you recommend to people during the springtime?
Well, number one is get outside. As long as it's a safe area and the weather's rather nice, it starts producing vitamin D, which also shows, or has been shown to regulate mood. So another thing can be to rule out the physiological. Is the person healthy? We can sit there and do therapy all day long, but if they're not well physically, then the mental health is also going to suffer. So good checkup is regularly is one of the first lines of defense. And if somebody is suicidal, then we get them the help that they need,
Hmm. I mean, there's
which is
there's certainly there's certainly signs, for that as well. Could you quickly go through? I mean, I know some of them, but I mean, just some of the signs, of suicide.
just depressed mood, um, calling somebody out of the blue or contacting them out of the blue, giving away things. These are the things that we've heard over and over again.
Mhm.
And it can just be somebody kind of dropping off the map all of a sudden.
Mhm.
Or there are, statements like, what if I weren't here? Would anybody miss me? Nobody really likes to spend time with me. Things like that. They can be indicators.
Are people more likely to commit suicide if they're talking about it, like if they have a plan, or are they less likely?
Well, if they have a plan, yes, that's a very good indicator of calling 911 or taking the person directly to the emergency room.
So
Plan
so
or
anybody can be an intercessor for that person, correct?
oh, absolutely, yeah, straight to the emergency room. And if transportation's an issue, 911. I know a lot of people don't like to do that because they're worried about police involvement, but it can
Mhm.
be an ambulance, and basically they would be acting as a transport service.
Mhm. Yeah, like I said, I'm still trying to wrap my head around um, everything that is associated with spring is, flowers in bloom, our hostas, bright colors. I mean, there's all kinds of things. So it's just the opposite of what you would think. So I mean, that's um, what should people do right now? I mean, if they're trying to help somebody cope, or they think that they're possibly experiencing some of the springtime depression.
Well, advise them to talk to their primary care provider. Of course, they can seek counseling, but again, need to make sure that they're healthy physically. A lot of times, there can be an underlying issue with mood and physical health, thyroid issues. And those,
Mhm.
most of the tests that are done are simple blood tests. And they can also do a really brief psychological evaluation,
Mhm.
usually about 9 to 10 questions, and uh, sometimes as little as two. And that gives us a good indicator and idea of where the person's at.
Well, we can certainly do those things here, to obviously plug our services, but um,
Absolutely.
we would want to encourage someone to go anywhere, somewhere where they can get help.
Absolutely. Yeah, if somebody's having suicidal thoughts, plan, especially if they have a past history of mood disorders or past suicide attempts, then yeah, they need to really get some help and help as soon as possible.
Well, thank you for being on Wellness Wednesday. Do you have any other additional information there in your notes that you brought with you?
Uh, can you go ahead and run the suicide hotline? I don't
Yeah,
have it memorized. I know I should.
yeah, I will. I will put it with the notes when we post this video. So yeah, um,
Okay.
yes, I will definitely do that. So we'll have that number, and of course, your number if you want to give your number.
Yes, absolutely. It's 251-690-8193.
Okay. And if someone needs to, excuse me, make an appointment, they can call 251-690-8889. Stephen, thank you
Absolutely.
for being on Wellness Wednesday and shedding a little bit more light on this little known phenomenon that occurs during spring.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you again.